You are the cap for whatever goes on in your store, in your company, in your district, in your household. However excited you are, what you believe is possible, whatever that threshold is.
Hey team, Jim Cripps here from the Charge Forward podcast, coming to you from Hit Lab Studios here in Nashville, Tennessee. Now I have a special guest for you today, and I don't just mean special in a general kind of way. I mean, this is my best friend on the planet. I've known him for 35 years. He is a fixer. He's an engineer. He is a lawyer. He's a proud husband and proud father. Please welcome to the Charge Forward podcast, Mr. Quinton Horner.
Thanks a lot, Jim. Appreciate it. And I actually was going to say that I was quite surprised with the offer. And you hit me up. You're like, hey, man, you need to be on my podcast. And I've kind of got my mind thinking about, like, whoa, what could I possibly bring to Jim's podcast? And you got me thinking about a lot of things I'm glad to share today. And hopefully we'll talk about some good things that resonate with some people.
Yeah, man. Well, you know, there's very few people on this planet that I go further back with. But we've known each other since fifth grade, I believe.
Absolutely. Fifth grade. I just moved to Ashland City, and you were among the first people I met.
Yeah, man. Well, and you know, I put quite a bit into your list of accomplishments or things, and most people wouldn't assume that a lawyer was also an engineer, and you know, so I think that's probably going to throw some questions out there. So let's dive into that one. Like, how did that come to play?
It wasn't by design from the beginning. You know, straight out of high school, I was kind of like most people. I did what my dad did. I didn't know that there was an option for doing anything else. My dad was an engineer. I grew up watching bulldozers and playing in the dirt. And that was just the consistent thing. It's like, okay, I'm going to go be an engineer. And that's what I did. I finished up at Alabama and did engineering for a decade. And then, you know, a change in life, I guess, decided I would go back to law school. You know, was single at the time, so my decisions were kind of incumbent upon me to live with, and you know, it's been a good change. So I spent about a decade in engineering, and I've been in law for a little over a decade. So it's been an interesting path, but the two are similar in how they relate. You know, so it's been enjoyable. I'm glad I did it.
Yeah, man. And, you know, I think between both of those, the only thing I think that would also kind of tie into that is if you became a doctor too. The reason I say that is there are places where you don't want frills, that you don't want guesses. You need somebody that tells the truth or does the full job because lives are on the line or the future is on the line. And, you know, so was that an easy transition, or I mean, you know, what do you find that is similar, and what do you find that is drastically different? So,
people have, of course, varying opinions of lawyers, the butts of jokes and different things else. But you know, I like to say I'm not an attorney who likes to go to court. The formalism and everything like that, that's for some people. It's not for me. But the thing that I didn't like about that is the persuasive argument nature of it. You know, where you have a series of factors and 2 factors may outweigh 6 factors and that stuff. The thing I like to argue is 2 + 2 = 4. All right. That's proven. I can get behind that. I can put that argument forward, and I like that. So with engineering, you know, you're dealing with finite things. You still got to have the real world applicability of it all. You know, to understand how it relates to the real world. But this is your set of rules. Let's use that. Let's get to a product. In law, at least as I practice it now, which we'll get into more so, which is like with real property, it's the same thing. You're dealing with finite stuff, and you're working to get to a finite answer. So that's interesting. You said that with being a doctor. You know, okay, something is broke, or we want to make something better. Let's take what we have, do what's known and proven, we hope, and get to that result. So I haven't really thought about that, but that's what I like about the type law that I practice is, you know, there's not a lot of variables. You know, I don't have to have a persuasive argument with the same set of facts, and because I have a persuasive argument, my side wins. I don't like that game, but there's a lot of people that do, and I'm happy for them.
Well, I think that type of law, or in that arena, it's more of a sales game. How can I package up the facts to sell my side of the story? Mm-hmm. Whereas yours is more black and white, and it really kind of just boils down to who did the full job to get to the actual answer.
I like getting to the actual answer. That's kind of how I got into law in the first place. Was my father passed when I was 27, and unbeknownst to him, things weren't as good a order for his estate as they should have been, and that protracted out from 2005 till 2011. And there was a finite number of things, 3 or 4 things, and yet it still took 7 years to get this stuff, almost 7 years to get it sorted out. Like that's too long. What I deal with is shorter term issues because I like the variety of things. I like being able to get to a resolution, conclusion on it, and moving on to the next thing. So, the whole drawn out process, that's I have more interest in the shorter term things.
Yeah. Well, the other thing that I said about you is that you're a fixer. And people can take that to mean a whole lot of different things. But for me, what that means, specifically in regard to you, is you do the whole job and you get to the actual answer. And it's resolved. And the reason I can speak to that with some authority there is not only have we been best friends for a long time, but in addition to that, you also worked with me at a company. And then, even when you were in law school and you're working with me, your work ethic stood out beyond really kind of anybody that I know. And on top of that, you're also the guy that if the proverbial shit hits the fan at 3 a.m., you're the guy I call. Because I don't have to worry about the explanation I'm going to have to give. If the phone rings at 3 a.m. and it's me, I'm not calling to say, "What's up, bud?" I'm calling because there's a real reason. And, what you were working on there during that time while you were in law school, this was not something that you needed to show up early for and stay late for. It wasn't that kind of job. I didn't pay you that kind of money. I mean, let's just be real. But you were you were the first one in the office every morning. And if it wasn't me, it was you that was the last one to leave.
Well, you're right about that, and that's the thing that I like is it's not just check a box. And that's a lot of people are hired to do specific finite things. But I like looking at the bigger picture of what are we trying to accomplish here? All right, because there may be a couple different ways we can go about it. But now, first, let's back up to a fixer. That doesn't mean that I don't make mistakes, but if I make a mistake and I've handled it, I like to fix it. I've kind of said that. People ask, well, what would be your ideal job? And I think my ideal job might be just for somebody who's got a lot of wealth. Like you said, I'm their fixer. Because I think being able to fix something is more of a skill set and a talent personally than it is like an acquired or a trade of some sorts. It's just your mindset. Things aren't always going to happen, especially in today's world, as connected as we are. Things are not always going to happen from 8 to 5. All right, we don't like it when it happens in the middle of the night or on the weekend or anything else, but it's still part of the bigger picture. And oftentimes it takes working that time frame on that problem to get it to the finish line, and that's what matters.
Yeah, I think it's that ability to operate both micro and macro in order to get it solved, regardless of what that specific knowledge or that specific area is. And some people will go, "Oh, well, that's not my thing." And not to say that there's not places that you should be in that space where you're like, "No, I'm not good at that." But You're the guy that sees it through. And I think no matter what industry, no matter what business, like, you have to have people with that kind of skill set. For years at the former company I worked at, I had Mike Chafe. Now I look at Mike Chafe like a more tactical version of you. Like, Mike's like a Swiss Army knife. I mean, yeah, he's got a military background, but he'll figure it out. And I feel like, especially on the legal side, the more technical, the more complicated issues, well, that's Quinton.
Well, and that's something too, as an employer, that I'm just thinking about it from the employer side of things. That's a hard thing to hire. Somebody sees a job posting on there. They see, okay, these are my tasks that I'm going to be expected to do as an employee. And I know Mike. I know what you're saying about Mike, having worked with him that time we worked together for that period. But like, you can't, as an employer, basically just say, I need somebody who's going to handle stuff.
Yeah.
What do you mean stuff? Well, it depends on what type of stuff needs to be handled. All right. Can you be a chameleon? And is that something you can handle or not? So I haven't really thought about it from the employer side. I haven't really been on that side of things. But how do you? That's the person you want, I think, is the person that adapts themselves to help get to what your end goal is.
Well, I kind of look at it this way. If let's just say the world starts to collapse and everybody's got to grab their go bag, I know that I have 7 minutes to call Mike Chafe, or Mike Chafe's gone. And I can tell you, at the end, when it gets down to that kind of level, I want Mike Chafe on my team. On the flip side of that, if I'm running a mega organization or I hit the lottery, well, you're the guy I'm calling. Like, dude, I don't know what I'm up against. Let's figure it out. And that's not a guy that or a girl that you hire based off of a resume. Like, you got to see those people in action, or you got to know people that have seen them in action.
So basically what Jim is trying to say is you have to make a lot of mistakes and learn from those mistakes in life, and that Quinton has made those and come out on the other end.
Well, you gotta get more right than you get wrong in order to come out the other end.
Very true.
There you go. So, you're one of those guys I wouldn't want to bet against, plain and simple.
Well, and that's, like, it is experience. That is a huge factor. There's, let's put it this way. Coming out of engineering school at Alabama, they were the people that made the good grades. All right, they were who they were. That's what they did. They always made good grades. And out of school, they got good job offers. But they didn't always pan out, because it's not just the book knowledge. All right, if you don't know what you're doing, how that relates to the real world, especially in the engineering world, you can put a lot of stuff on paper, but you can't take that and apply it to field conditions. I mean, it can't be done. You're like, I used to do civil site design. All right, in AutoCAD, I can design stuff down to a finite 100th of an inch level, but that does not mean a guy whose coffee machine broke in the morning and is working without coffee on top of a D8 bulldozer can grade it to that. So there is that differentiation between a book smart learned skill set, which you have to have, and understanding how what you have learned applies to a real world situation.
Well, I wasn't planning on going this route, but you gave me the perfect segue to this. You and I both know that firsthand, because we were crazy enough in the past 5 years to decide to build our own homes. And I say crazy enough, and you may be crazier than I am. And the reason I say that is you saw what I went through, and then you signed up for the same thing. And, I think about my dad. The first thing he ever built was a doghouse. And the next thing he built was the home they live in today. You and I skipped the doghouse. If I look at other people who decide to build their own homes, they start with, the starter home, the 1,100 square foot 3 and 2, and they get through that. Then they go up to the next one, go up to the next one. And you and I, we did not do any of those things. We went straight from we've never built our own home before to we both built $1 million plus properties. And it took both of us roughly 2 years, start to finish. I remember, I think it was the 9th or 19th of January, 2019, is when I put a bulldozer blade in the ground. And like I was so I can do this myself that I went out and bought the bulldozer instead of paying somebody to do it. And so a lot of that, having the head knowledge versus actually putting into practice and building it, we both went through that process. And, I can tell you, I'm glad I did it. At the same time, I don't think I'll ever do it again.
Well, you must think now that I've been done for like a year and a half that you can't take me back with like PTSD stuff here. I mean, this was, yes. Well, now granted too, I had a lot more of the COVID thrown in the middle of mine than you did, but still, it's that was quite the process and undertaking on things. But once again, it's a systematic process on things. Foundations come before, walls come before, flooring come before. I mean, it all has. And yeah, we had never done that before, but like a lot of things in life, we self-educated.
Oh yeah.
We learned, hard lessons to do and not to do and how to deal with people. And, it's funny, you started out people like, I knew I'd be low man on the totem pole as far as priority, but man, the bottom of the totem pole is low.
Yeah, it is. I know we both ran into this, just that kind of attitude of, oh, well, nobody's going to work with you because you're an individual. And there was some of that. But at the same time, I also feel like you treat people right, and all of a sudden you start getting a reputation of treating people right, and then more people will work with you.
Well, and the flip side of that, too, kind of relating over to our conversation, there were a lot of things that we entrusted people to do and had or did pay good money for them to do that didn't get done.
Yeah.
Well, then what? Well, then, Quinton gets home from work, has supper, puts his daughter down to bed, and goes and works until 2 o'clock in the morning. Once again, the larger picture is get this done. Mm-hmm. So you do what you have to. Did I want to paint the whole interior of the house myself? Nope. I like to paint, but not to that scale. And you ended up doing a lot of things and self-educating to get to that final thing, which kind of leapfrogs what we're talking about. The fixer is when you say something about like a fixer, it's so broad in scope. It really narrows down to let's identify what we're trying to accomplish and do what it takes to get there.
Yeah.
That simple.
Absolutely. Now, my most fun thing that I don't know if I've told anybody about this, but my most fun moment at you building a house is the day we painted the ceilings downstairs. Because I had brought you a sprayer about 3 months before that, and you had not used it until that day. And I think there was a little bit of a, maybe I should have opened this before today.
Yes. Enough said.
Enough said. Well, man, you know that the spirit of the Charge Forward podcast is really that of people that default to charging forward, getting it done when other people give up. And, I'm sure there's somebody out there that has just been sunshine and rainbows their entire life. But, I think back on it, and, one of the most challenging things is I see you go to Alabama, which is, rock star. You wanted to go to Alabama as a school. You get down there, and am I thinking right that this is your junior or senior year and have to have brain surgery?
Oh yeah, my senior year. It's kind of talk about something that comes out of the blue.
Right.
Before I went back for my senior year, my dad, who had an aneurysm, said, well, why don't you just go get a precautionary MRI? And I did in August, and they found something about the size of a pea. No symptoms, no headaches, no nothing. So I got another one when I was home for Thanksgiving that year, and it was the size of a golf ball. Still, no side effects, no symptoms, no nothing. So they knew what it was, and that I would have surgery over Christmas. So that was an interesting Christmas break on December 23rd at 22 years old, to have brain surgery right before Christmas. But yeah, that was a story to tell for sure.
Well, and one of the things that sticks out in my head is what it was for 24, 48 hours. You really could only say 3 words, and we don't want to use them here on the air, but there were 3 of the cuss words, and that was about it for the first 2 days.
Yeah, it's interesting, and everybody kind of knew that's what it was, I guess, the swelling of your brain when oxygen hits it. But yeah, I started with yep, nope, and shit.
Yep.
And built everything back up from there. So there was my foundation. There
was your foundation. And then, graduate, come here, move back to Nashville. And, just a series of interesting things. Like even the U-Haul truck broke down on the way back from moving you from Alabama.
Your memory is better than mine, but yeah, that does stand out now.
I remember sleeping in the front cab of that U-Haul truck, and we almost made it all the way back. we made it to Franklin, so the Franklin exit. But get back, and you go into engineering, like you said. That's just the direction you were going to go. And you get you had a good job in Atlanta. And then you move up here, and still in the engineering space, and you're kind of known as Harry's boy. How did that kind of play into being in engineering, deciding to leave engineering? What did that look like? So, after I graduated in Alabama, I was back in Nashville for just a little bit, and then did find myself with a civil engineering firm outside of Atlanta. Civil site design, and in 2004 my dad got diagnosed with cancer, and kind of knowing what the outcome of that was going to be is what brought me back to the Nashville area in 2005, working with an engineering firm. But because my dad had been in, as you say, in that space for a long time and had a good reputation, that's how a lot of people knew me. Mm-hmm. Obviously I don't have the track record yet of anything. A lot of these people I grew up around, on various trips and different things. And, you're right. That's kind of what people knew me as, was Harry's son. Mm-hmm. And which is a good way to know you.
Which is, yeah. I'm glad my dad, was thought of in that way. But, he passed ultimately in July of 2005. And I was 27. At 27, you think that you're an adult and you have the answers, and you're going to step into the shoes of your dad, and you're going to carry on. It's going to be great. And that is not it. If anybody's lost a parent, I describe it as losing like a big safety net. Now, whether it's financial or advice or whatever, if you know that you can call and talk to a parent, that's a comfort. Mm-hmm. that you have. And when that's gone, it takes some adapting. All right. You make those mistakes. There's not necessarily somebody there to tell you it's all right. Listen, I've made those mistakes. It's going to be fine. If you get hard up for money and you don't have you need $1 to get out of a pinch, you can usually call a parent. And so, but ultimately I think what made me transition in hindsight from engineering to law were 2 things. I didn't know how to deal with being known as Harry's boy. That's simply it.
Especially after the fact.
After he had passed, I didn't know what to do with that. So, and a combination of that, and then dealing and paying attorneys for 7 years after he died on things, and being really involved with it. This the outcome was going to directly affect me. And if I went back and talked to my attorneys, then they'd probably say that I was too involved. But I did the research. I mean, I would send the emails that said, what about this? Can we ask for this? So the combination of those two things, and then with the downturn in the economy in 2008, with all that went on, especially with the housing industry, and that's who I mainly worked with, were home developers and site developers, but all that just dried up. I was already enrolled in Nashville School of Law. So that's kind of the transition over to law on that was, trying to find a direction that was me. And just, I knew that I liked the space of engineering. I liked 2 + 2 always being 4, but I was still searching and looking for something else that would kind of be my identity and not necessarily,
a shared identity.
Shared identity.
Well, and I'll say the thing that maybe I think you're being a little bit too nice about here is you got into law because you had 2 lawyers that were abusing their client or their fiduciary agreement. Or their responsibility, in my opinion. There were a couple things that happened. Your dad's employers were trying to get over on his estate because he was no longer with us, and you were having to fight them. But with 2 lawyers, that it's kind of like they tied your hands behind your back and were like, all right, sit here and watch us halfway fight this. And it drug out forever. And just things that went on shouldn't have gone on if they were doing right by you. And I could remember you saying, I can do better than what they're doing. And it wasn't long before you said, I'm going to do better than what they're doing. And you signed up and started going to Nashville School of Law.
Yeah, I was actually halfway through law school by the time that everything actually wrapped up in 2011. Actually, I was 3 years into their 4-year program. And to not totally discount what you said, but also, their law practice, like a lot of other professions and everything, it's set up, it's volume to an extent. All right, I had a little bit more of a personal knowledge, a lot more of a personal knowledge about the things that they were trying, the arguments that they were trying to make, the facts that they needed. And you're right, it was me trying to impress upon them that, hey, if I was you, I would use this, I would use this. But then, and we can talk about this more in a little bit, it's still the volume game. All right, and that's great for some businesses. And you have to have that to be in business. You have to have that to make money for your employer if you own a company to make money. That's great. But it isn't always the best tact.
Well, some things are not necessarily scalable.
100%.
And, a lot of times, and I don't know that everybody pays attention to this. And so if you're a business owner out there and you've got a fixer, your fixer, in order to fix things, there is a finite amount of things that they can fix. And, I think that's important out there because I've played my fair share of fixer and I've had fixers. And it is a balance. It is, you want to make sure that you haven't burnt them out and that they are there when you need them. What do you think? Am I on the right? Am I in the right?
Well, right, and that
that?
made me think of this as an example of a parallel. Babe Ruth. I can hit home runs. I can pitch. I can do it all. You're not going to scale Babe Ruth. You can sit in the same clubhouse with him, and he can tell you how he hits home runs. He can tell you how he pitched the ball. Hell, he could probably tell you a lot of stories about his lifestyle.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that that's through some sort of osmosis going to rub off on you. So that's what we mean by some things are not scalable, because some people just have a talent set that they do what they do.
Yeah.
They're not to discount anything or anybody around them, but they are the talent in that area.
Yeah.
All right. So, hiring another employee or, trying to get a game plan. Well, this is what makes you good at what you do. Let's find out what that is, and then we'll hire somebody else and we'll teach them how to do it. Well, that may work in 85% of things, but that's still a space that it won't. So that's a hard thing, I think, to kind of wrap your mind around, because I do subscribe to the theory that nobody is indispensable, right? Everybody can be replaced. We all agree with that. But I think that when you're dealing with somebody who does serve in that purpose for you, that is a Mike Chafe, that can fix and does produce, that they're kind of outside of the normal scope, that you want to handle things a little bit different.
Yeah, absolutely. Along the way, you've had some pretty awesome achievements. What do you say you hang your hat on, kind of through that process?
For me, honestly, I think the best achievement for me has been the work ethic that I've come into of things. So that, people are like, well, yourself, your achievement. I mean, you bowled 300 backwards and got it on video, of all things.
Right.
That's a big achievement. I don't have many moments like that, but the achievement of getting to the space that I'm in now with the skill set and the work ethic and thing, I like that about me. It didn't come easy. I went to Nashville School of Law, non-traditional program, so I worked for 4 years while going to law school from 4:45 to 10 o'clock, 3 nights a week, most of the time. And single guy then, my time was my time, so extra kudos to the people that did that with a family and with kids. I mean, I had an easier route through there, but, I had quite the academic track record, and we'll leave it at that, at Alabama. It seems like I either made A's or F's. So, the acumen to kind of change both my work ethic, change how I approached academics.
Learning how to learn.
Yeah, there is a method. It's not just, they're smart, or they read the book. I mean, you have to develop your own method and what works for you for learning. So when it came down to taking the bar exam, when it came down to taking the patent exam, I prepared for it. And then overall, the tests were easy. I mean, it's like anything in life. If you prepare the way that you should, and especially if you are judged against your peers in a test, you're going to do all right. You put in the time, you're going to get the rewards.
Yeah. Well, you go through that, and you touched on this just a little bit, was the work ethic. If anytime I describe you, and in fact, I described you to Dale earlier, and, yes, I said fixer, but also talked about your work ethic. And, you say it was developed. I think maybe the word is probably more honed, because you've always had this work ethic of, I'm going to show up and I'm going to do the whole job. And, you don't let yourself off the hook that way. You hold yourself accountable, even when others around you are not held accountable or don't hold themselves accountable. And I think that is just one of the traits that, whether it was instilled, at an early age, by your dad or what, but I do think that is a huge part of who you are. And
two, once again, you've kind of sugarcoated a little this, and I think you'll agree, a big part of that is being hard-headed.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Just flat out stubborn.
I remember in engineering in Atlanta, we submitted our final plats for approval to the city, and you could only do that. It had to be done by Tuesday morning, I think, at 10 o'clock, and if you didn't meet that deadline, it didn't get reviewed until the next cycle. So I had a developer on Friday say, hey, Quinton, you think you can get this final plat put together and submitted to me for, by next Tuesday? Just kind of like, yeah, you think you could pull this off for me? And I was like, well, maybe. And he's like, well, if you do it, I will pay you twice what they pay you. And if you can get it done by Tuesday, I'll go ahead and make us a tee time at Atlanta Athletic Club where my dad's a member, and we'll go play golf there. Well, okay, I rise to the challenge. So I went in Sunday night, started working on this final plat, and left Tuesday morning and turned it in with the county. But I got it done. Right. I mean, engineers don't go to work and pull all-nighters all that often, but a lot of that is kind of what, and it's not all positive doing that, but a lot of that is what helped kind of the work ethic and like, okay, well, sometimes you do have to make sacrifices to get things done. And for this particular developer is a big deal. I mean, he's paying interest only money on a 30 or 40 lot subdivision. A week's worth of time means a lot to him. Yeah. I made a sacrifice too, but we got it done. And that may have been the first example of what it takes to get something done, to achieve a goal that somebody is trying to achieve.
Well, I think especially early on, because at that point you're 22, 23, somewhere around in there.
Yeah.
And especially in your teens and early 20s, like you got to figure out what you're capable of. Like what can I do if I just decide to? And I think that's part of the process. And, I don't want to say unfortunately, because that's not the right word. I think we're fortunate and that we've kind of put that ourselves to the test to figure that out.
Yeah, you got to know your limits. And you and I, through 35 years, have tested our limits on a lot of things. And I want to say one of the first times I tested my limits is, we've always been heavier set guys, and I go to college and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can eat whatever I want, do whatever I want, and I did for the first year. And at the end of my first year, I was 238 pounds.
Yeah.
All right. So that summer, I decided this sucks. I'm tired. Well, I took engineering classes, so I was done by 11. I'd go play golf after that. I'd go to the gym after that. And then I'd go running in the subdivision I lived in, but three mailboxes further every night, and did it every night. And I kept up. I wrote down with what I ate every night. And I'd allow myself chicken wings every other Saturday. And that was my routine for 3.5 months. When people came back after being gone all summer, I had gone from 238 to 158 pounds in 3.5 months. So not that I'm ever going to do that again, but there's a good example of knowing what you can do if you want to do it.
Yeah.
On things. And that's good to know about yourself. I think, there's a lot of, the military and a lot of different things that they do. Like, I need you to know what you're capable of so you can better perform in the space that you need to.
So you find that gear so that you know that you can do it.
You know that you have it.
Yeah.
I mean, you just don't just say, no, I can't get that done. No, I can't get that final plat done for you because that would mean that I'd have to come in here and stay all night. Well, bless your heart.
Oh, I know it. Well, it was a study. I forget where I saw this, but just in the last week or so, it was how many, I think it's Gen Z that is, entering the workspace now, and how over 50% of them say they're overwhelmed. And this is working, like 30-hour jobs. And, I don't know what your threshold was, but I know a couple of times I've put in at work, not talking about when we were at work and then building homes, but at work, 90 plus hours. And, was it fun? No, but they call it work for a reason. And I needed to get that done. So that meant that I was the guy to do it. And I know you've been in that same space too. And so, you need to push those limits sometimes to figure out what you've got in reserve. It's kind of like, I don't recommend it all the time, but if you got to run the tank all the way to empty, well, how far does it go past when it says 0? There may be a lot left in the tank.
Yeah, that's true. You got to, on the tank analogy, you got to know what your empty is and what your full is. I mean, listen, work's tough. Life's tough. All right. And if operationally you're between two parallels that are a foot apart, when your potential is two parallels that are 5 feet apart, you need to know that, all right? You need that range in life. So however you get there, maybe you just have a natural instinct of what your highs and lows are. But a lot of people, including myself, I mean, you've got to make mistakes, and you've got to have some hard-headed successes to truly know what you're capable of.
Yeah. We've talked about this too. I think one of the things where people get themselves in trouble, and, I think sometimes it leads to people giving up. Sometimes I think it leads to just people being miserable, is overcommitting.
That, to me, personally, is one of the most sickening feelings that I can have. And it's tough. I've had it way too much. And it's just been the last year that I'm starting to digest how that affects me. All right. I want to help people. In the area of space that I'm in, the engineering, the law, the real property, the different things. I mean, I get called on quite a bit. I jokingly say you want to know enough to be indispensable at work, but not so much that people think you have the right answer for everything. So, I do get reached out to a lot for people that want help with things, and I want to help if I can, and then I find myself overcommitting.
Well, I think they reach out to you because you do the total job, meaning you get them to the finish line, not part of the way, not whatever. Like whatever's in your scope of work, you get that done, and then everybody wants a guy or everybody wants a girl. Meaning, I want that person that I can call and I know that they get me where I'm trying to go. And when you do that for enough people, you become their go-to, and because you feel a duty to them, you have trouble saying no. But the reality is, in order to help people, you have to say no to some people.
Right. Your bucket can be full, and that's totally understandable. It's not a negative thing. All right. So I've gotten in the space now where, like, I will tell you, yes, I can help you with this, but it may be next week. Or yes, I can help you with this, but it's got to turn in. I'm in the title business now. So I do construction loans, real property stuff, not just buying and selling of houses, that type thing, but more complex type things. So I have a lot of people that will send me contracts to review, questions they have about different things on the front end.
These are not small numbers either. I mean, just to paint the correct picture here, I mean, these are complicated, a lot of times, complicated contracts that are big money.
Yeah, and with big consequences, and the off chance that something does happen. But on that, but this is, I mean, I'm in the title business, all right? When you think of somebody that's in the title business, you think of the person that sits across you from the table when you're buying or selling property on that. But, I also get called upon to not just review the contracts, but if you have a development that's going to have an HOA, all right, drafting condo documents or, splitting it up for that type of development, easement-related issues, overall just, hey, do you think that this is a good deal? What have you seen? So, I mean, those are all things that I'm happy to do those. Those are all ancillary to like what my actual job is. But sometimes it can be, overwhelming. I've got somebody that sends me, a $7 million contract for a really urban development, and it's thick and it has a lot of big words, and I want to do it justice. And they want to know if I can have it done by tomorrow because that's when they've got to, sign it. Well, crap. But, it gets done. So those are the type scenarios to where I don't really mind doing it, but it's the things that I like take on myself on top of that. Somebody's like, hey, you're an attorney, you know everything about all aspects of law. Can you help me with this? It's those obligations that get me in trouble.
Well, and, I've heard you say this before, and you'll correct me. It's basically you got advice when you were early on in your legal career, may even been in law school, and it was know what you know and also know what you don't know and stay out of what you don't know.
Actually, it was a law school professor, Eddie Davidson, sharp cat, since retired. But it was, know what you know and know what you don't know and stay the hell away from what you don't know. You and I self-educate on there. I don't like not knowing. You probably get this same thing. I do all the time. Well, especially through building a house. Well, how did you know how to do that? Well, how do you know about this? How do you know about this? Because I self-educate. So, somebody asked me to do something. If I wanted to, I could do it. but I would have to have a certain level of self-educating to be able to do it. And even that's taxing. So that's kind of like the small town general practitioner attorney. Come one, come all. I've hung a shingle. I'll do your divorce. I'll bail your cousin out of jail, not his drugs. I'll close on your house deal. I'll write your will so mom and them can get everything, if something happened to you. That in and of itself is a skill set for anybody that can do that. That's not me. All right.
I've seen you there and you were miserable.
Miserable. Because so much of that time is self-educating, right? If I'm going to charge somebody, especially if I'm going to hold myself out as being a person that can help you with your problems or something that you want, like I've got to feel that I'm capable of doing that on things. So you're right. It was a miserable period. And now with what I'm doing, very rarely does something come across that I actually have got to do some research on. Yeah. And I mean, you're a better,
more specialized.
Right. You talk about things differently when you have an adequate knowledge about them. There's no hemming and hawing.
Yeah.
So now, as busy as things are, if somebody calls up and says, hey, I have a question about X, Y, or Z, if it's in my wheelhouse, good. I can have an answer for you. Yes or no. That quick. And that's what it takes, when you really get in the busy season of things. And okay, well, the answer was no. That's not what I was expecting, but you sound pretty definitive. You know why? Because I am definitive about it.
Yeah.
The answer is no.
Well, and I think it's critical that people specialize in things. Not that there's not a space for a jack of all trades, but think about a general practitioner. Do you want a general practitioner doing brain surgery on you? Absolutely not. All the more reason, like even in what you do now, if you're doing a $7, $10, $12, $15 million deal, do you want somebody that was handling a divorce case this morning working on your $12 million deal? Absolutely not.
Well, as long as nothing comes up that's of consequence, you never know.
Well, it could be easy. It could be everything was, all the I's were already dotted and T's crossed. But you are on the front end. You can solve so many problems because you just don't let them come up because the contract is right.
Right. That's right. That is one side of the coin. But life happens, and that's why there's a second side of the coin. And that's that, problems do come up, problems do arise. You advise somebody of something on the front end. They didn't do it. Now, how are we gonna deal with what's going on after that? So yeah, I agree. I advocate 100%. This is what I do. This is what I know. And if it's outside of the scope of things I'm comfortable with, I will find you somebody who's more specialized and can give you a better answer.
Yeah. Well, and to take it back to the home reference, this was a very real one for me.
As we say that, after we talked about how we are not home builders and built our own home that our family and small children live in, you may continue.
But I think we can both agree, your engineering background and my just willingness to overbuild, we probably have the safest homes anywhere around.
Absolutely. Whenever I'd get to the stage, so Jim was about 2 years ahead of me on everything. So I'd ask, Jim, what'd you do for this? It's like, oh, I used 24 by 24 inch beams and 7 of them. And I'm like, okay, well, not going to do that. But yeah, definitely overcompensation. It's not going anywhere. Your house is not.
No, definitely not. But a real world example of how one simple mistake costs an insane amount of time and potentially money. So, my concrete, I love the concrete work that was done on the property. It's fantastic. It's stamped. It's all the things. They did crazy things that they thought I was crazy about asking for. But one of the things that they forgot is I had a piece of pipe laying there that was supposed to go right underneath it so that I would have wiring for my 2 front porch lights. And when they started doing the steps, they forgot to put that piece of pipe in there. And so 4 years later, shout out to Jason Lewis. Jason Lewis and his team dug up underneath and put the pipe underneath one side, and because they couldn't go all the way across because the pad is so long right there, had to go around the front of the porch to get to the other side. So now 4 years later, we finally connected with that one already paid for $2 piece of pipe would have taken care of. And the same is true in a contract. If you forget to put in a clause or something of that nature, it can cause a lot of heartache, time, effort, hurt feelings, all kinds of things down the road.
Right. And that, contracts are always, they can say anything. I mean, it's kind of like where you get into trouble is if somebody wants to enforce what they say.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and that happens. People make mistakes. Once again, I'm going back to, I make plenty of them. And then just look for solutions on how to fix them.
Yeah. Now, this next part, I think you and I see eye to eye on almost down to the letter, is protecting your reputation. I think I've always for, 30 years been known as somebody who's trustworthy, and I would say the exact same thing about you. But how important is reputation to you?
It is the hallmark thing. We all grow up and our parents were like, well, your reputation is going to speak for you. And of course, me coming after my dad, who had a good reputation on doing things. It's something that you really need to protect. I subscribe to the theory of, like, if doubt ever enters into my mind about anything, then my mindset about that is kind of never the same. You don't want to give somebody reason for doubt. And I'm happy to say that, I won't say on all things, but most all things that matter, I have never compromised. Here's an example. Engineering in Atlanta, there's a property that was in the floodplain, and this is back when we'd scan in and overlay flood maps. Took a piece of paper, scanned it in, overlaid it on AutoCAD. This is where the flood line is. And you had to stay out of that. Well, I was working with the developer, and he's like, well, are you sure that floodplain line is where it is? Because if it was back just a little bit, I could get another lot in there. And at the time, 2004, that's an $85,000. That's another lot I can get. Are you sure you drew it in right? I'm positive. All right. This was the same developer that took me to play golf.
Right.
But that's where it is. And, throughout the professional world, you are going to have the opportunity to move off of center and put your reputation at stake frequently.
Yeah.
You're going to have the opportunity to make money that seems too easy. And for those reasons.
And you're also going to see other people do it and prosper or even, short term, make those gains.
Which doesn't make it any easier to walk the straight and narrow. But that's one of the things that I think about me. That's one of the things that I think people think about me. And I like that. All right? If I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. Things come up. They always do with people. And you'll understand it. If I was supposed to have you something by tomorrow night, and it turns out that, I had to have a surgery. I mean, there's reasons that I can't get that done. You're fine with that. And so it means a lot. People will come back to you for your advice if they know you have their best interest in mind. And they don't have any reason to doubt you. So don't compromise. The one takeaway for anybody is don't compromise in what is your reputation. You can't do it. Especially,
you can't undo it either.
I'm 46, made it this far. Why do I want to screw it up now?
Yeah.
Got another I've never had a Mountain Dew. People are like, well, why don't you have a Mountain Dew? I'm like, well, 46, never had a Mountain Dew. It's a good story for me. not going to have one.
That's right. That's right. So what's next for you? I mean, I know this about you, and the thing that I know about you is you've got to constantly be moving forward. And I know that because I have to too. And when I get most frustrated is when I don't feel like I'm moving forward. And so, you come into title a couple of years ago. I don't want to say you've mastered it, but I would say with as many zeros as I could put on a contract, I would absolutely trust you to be the guy to make sure that nothing was out of line. What's the next thing?
Especially since you have gotten into the arena that you're in. All right. I've followed Jim, like you said, ever since
Jams.
Right. Since we were young. And truth be known, Jim's academic record was not stellar.
No, absolutely not.
At a couple different places.
That's right.
But
I am the only person that has failed calculus 4 times.
Jim.
Did you?
Yes.
How'd you not get kicked out then?
I got an attorney.
At UT, you fail calculus 3 times. They don't ask you to leave.
Well, try failing it 3 times and being in engineering school. So
I was not.
But the business acumen. You've had it, but you applied it to the business that you were working for. Now that you're out doing what you're doing, and you're actually talking about it, it's gotten me thinking a lot about. What is it that makes me me? What is going to challenge me? And I've got a reputation of, I'll do something for 3, 4, 5 years, and then I say I get bored with it, and then I change and do something else. Not that I get bored with the task at hand. I think what I'm starting to discover is I have got to have something that moves me forward personally or professionally, and that's it. We all need money. Money's good. Money's great. I'm proud to say that I have never asked for a raise. I've always been of that hard-headed mindset that, listen, I'm not in charge of that. I've almost all the time had an employer. All right. They can offer me what they want to offer me, and I'll either work for them or I won't. But it's always worked out good. But I've got to have something that challenges me. And that's a hard thing, the hard thing too, because, I think one of the bigger skill sets is tact. All right. We talked a little bit about that. It's not how you solve the problem, but it's how you go about it.
Oh yeah.
There's some people that are just inherently
abrasive
assholes.
There you go.
And hey, they're people too. They've got business that needs to be transacted. If I want to, I think I can pretty much deal with anybody for a certain period of time. So, that's one of the things that is in and of itself a skill set. I know law, I know engineering, I know title, but I also know people. And you don't have to like everybody you deal with. But that doesn't, they still have something that needs to get accomplished,
right?
Irrespective of their personality traits. And if you choose to sign up and work for them, well, take that into account, the type person that you're dealing with, to help get the job done. So that's an example of things that I'm kind of discovering about me that go into my overall skill set that you ask about, well, what's next, is developing that. What am I selling to somebody? Am I selling to somebody that I can close your transaction, I can get you title insurance, I can sit across from a table from you, I'll even put on a tie for some people? Or am I selling to, my employer and the product as whole of, yeah, I'll get you there, but I'm also going to make sure it's a good experience. I'm also going to give you good advice. And I do that. The people that I'm closest with and advise, I'll be like, well, this is what it says. And if I was in your shoes, this is what I would do. And these are people that I've known now for and done business with for upwards to a decade. And I think they put a lot of stock in that.
Sure.
You know, a lot of them have a lot of money. And they realize the difference, you know, that, hey, if I was in your shoes, I would do this. I can't personally, but this is why I think you should do this. So, you know, that honing in on things, you know, that's that 3 to 5 years I'm bored type of thing, figuring out like the next step from that. Just because you solve a problem, just because you walk through shit once doesn't mean you want to do it daily. All right. So figuring things out like that. How do I make myself a better employee with my skill set?
Right.
You know, how do you take something like we spoke about earlier that's not necessarily scalable, and, you know, what's the next step for that? Because, you know, as an employee, I'm a big believer that you need to have open communication with your employer.
Right.
Two-way street, all right? You're not indebted to them. You're there to help make them money, and they pay you accordingly, all right? But it's also good to know, where do they want to be as a company?
Yeah.
Well, I want to be a $20 million a year company. I'm in a $5 million company now. Well, how do you want to do that? Well, I just want to make more money. I need 10 more Quintons. Yes. You know, but also, what's your next step what do they see as your next step as an employee? Because it doesn't have to be, listen, long gone are the times where our parents, what did you start doing once you got into the work world? Well, I worked for Nissan, and I did it for 40 years, and now it's time to retire. I was a teacher for 40 years. Applause to those people. Tremendous accomplishment and longevity. But the world, for the most part, is not like that anymore. It moves fast. Technology is changing. Business is changing. So there's nothing wrong with being an interim employee for somebody.
Yeah.
If it's a two-way street, you know, what can you help me learn? But to do that, you've got to have good communication to know what it is you're trying to accomplish, what they have to offer you, and vice versa, what you're offering them. Mostly you see a job posting, it says, can you do this? You say, hey, I can do that. Yes, I'm your guy. And that's the extent of knowledge that they have, is they said they could do what's on this paper. Well, what are they doing for you besides giving you a paycheck? And the more you know about how do you achieve a goal if you don't even talk about what the goal is?
Well, you don't. That's just an inherent start of a goal, right? Is when it's got to be written down, and then you got to have steps towards it. There's a process to it, and I do think people lose sight of that. And I know we've talked about this analogy before, but it's really kind of how I saw hiring. And I've made every mistake you can. Well, not every, but I've made a lot of the mistakes you can possibly make in hiring and interviewing people. And, after hiring roughly 2,000 people over the last 20 years, somewhere along the way, I figured out it was kind of like the hitchhiker that has agreed to pay for gas, almost like rideshare, but we didn't have rideshare when we kind of started talking about this. But employment is that way. So imagine that we're in, Barstow, California. We're at, almost the beginning of I-40. And, I'm interviewing somebody, so they're the hitchhiker, and I don't mean this derogatory, but it's to paint the picture. So it could just be that it was unseasonably cold, and that's why they want to get in a car. So it could be that they just need money, like if you're an employee, and you just need a job. Well, but for most people, that's not enough, because we may be trying to get to two different places, and so. If I truly figure out where it is that you're trying to go, and you're trying to go to Texas, and I'm headed to Tennessee, well, then it makes sense for us to ride together for a certain period of time. But if you hold back and you really want to go to Alaska, and I'm headed to Tennessee, well, this employee-employer relationship is going to get more and more tense every mile that I drive. There's only a very short period of time that you're going to be thankful that you're not out in the cold or in the rain anymore, meaning that you're getting a paycheck. And the further we go, the further you're getting away from where you're trying to go. So you become less hospitable. You become more aggravated. I start to wonder why you're not being grateful. And so we become adversarial. Whereas we just shouldn't have been in the car with each other to start with. Like, I shouldn't have hired that person. Also, if you're headed to Texas, there's clearly a jumping off point where that you said interim, but it could be a year, it could be 5 years, who knows? But as long as we're both getting closer to our goals, that makes sense. But I also know as an employer that somewhere in Texas, it's going to make sense for you to get out of the car. And if we've had that conversation up front and we've had check-ins along the way, I'm cheering you on. I'm excited about you getting to your destination, and I have no false pretenses that you're riding with me all the way to the end. But I think so many times people don't do enough work in the interview in order to figure that out.
Right. It's kind of like a relationship.
Yeah.
Right? You date a lot of people. You don't marry them all.
That's right.
All right. So throughout the vetting process, if you say you don't want kids, on the third date, your companion says, I want 3 kids, you know that that's not headed down the same path, which is good. And I think a lot of times, the interview process, which totally not my thing, your thing, not mine, is the art to it is to try to figure out as much as you can. The potential employees coming in there saying, I can do all of this. I'll work hard. I'll work real hard. Matter of fact, the more you pay me, the harder I'll work. But lost in that is the dialogue of, okay, I'm going to work hard. I'm going to do this. I'm going to master this skill. Then what? Is that it? Is the cycle I keep doing it and doing it? That's fine. That's a lot of different jobs.
And some people are geared for that, and some people are not.
And some people are not. And I think that I am not. Because, real life example, a while back I had an opportunity to go to potentially work for a company that 5 years ago would have been okay, I want to do this. And it kind of caught me off guard, and got to talking about things, and, it got to the point of, after a week or so, they wanted to start talking about money. And that's when I just said, listen, I'm happy where I'm at. I'm liking what I'm doing. I'm headed down this path, and I think I'm just going to stay where I'm at. Because I didn't want the money to be a factor in that.
Yeah.
And that, like I said, I like money as much as the next person. Wish I had more of it on that. But I didn't want that to be what influenced me ultimately. And the same thing what I said about personal and professional growth. All right. Yes. I'm not naive to think that money isn't a part of that, but I don't want it to be.
Yeah.
All right. I'm a self-educator on things that I don't know. All right. We all need somebody to help us. I was in a great situation, going to wagon wheel title where I'm at now, where somebody that was there knew long-term that's not what they wanted to do, but they were there for an interim period of over a year, and I sat right beside them, and I sucked that up. Every question I had, Eric. It was great. It helped me get my feet under me a whole lot quicker. So it's not always a bad thing to say, Jim, I'm going to join your company. And from what it sounds like, and what the steps are for advancement, I got 3 years with your company. I'm gonna give you hard work for 3 years. But then after that 3 years is up, I don't know what's next. But I think we both agree that you're not going to sell me your company.
Right.
So how can you help me 3 years from now once I have, hopefully your company's in a better place. I've worked hard. We both learned, but and it'd be great if you could work that out on the front end, if you had enough dialogue through the interview or knew enough. It's not ideal. It usually takes a while to learn both sides before you can have that conversation. But, a defined or a, less than 30-year career in an employer is the norm. Why does it, It doesn't have to always end bad. But like you said, like your car ride example, too many people who are going to Alaska don't really say what's on their mind until they get in Arkansas and they're like, well, hell, man, I'm trying to get to Alaska. Why am I in Arkansas? I don't know, man. I just offered you a ride. I said I'm going to Tennessee and you're still in my car.
Right.
And then it turns bad for everybody. So, what's next for me is trying to learn more about me and the skill set that I have, the way I can fulfill that personal and or professional growth and move things forward.
I love it, man. I love it. Let's talk about health for a minute. We touched on it a little earlier. Now, back up to June 22nd of this year, you and I both were heavier than we are now.
Yes.
And we got that way on accident, meaning we chose not to make better choices, and we let work and family and being busy and all kinds of things be excuses.
And chicken wings and Mexican and bourbon.
Yeah, definitely tortilla chips. And man, we started talking. This would have been kind of early or mid-June, and I said, "Man, why don't you do this animal-based diet with me, and let's knock it out." And you jumped full on board. And any idea how much weight you've lost?
Maybe 30 pounds, something like that. But that's my MO. Okay, I can't half anything.
No, all in.
It's like, listen, if we're gonna run a marathon, let's run the marathon.
Yeah.
Why take 2 weeks to do something when you can do it in 1 week?
It's like things. I don't want to practice it. I want to just go do it.
That's it.
Yeah. So, what's next on the health side?
Well, I'm still doing it, and I like it, the variety of it. And, like you said, it's mainly, I guess it's kind of like a keto thing. Try to eat under 25 carbs a day and 200 grams of protein, which is work.
It is work.
Man, it's work. It's laborious at times.
What's been your highest protein day?
Probably like 250 or something like that. But that's when I just have like a bunch of leftover meat, and I'm like, it's going to spoil. I'll just eat this bag of meat for dinner. It's depressing. It's not much for family meals. You don't sit out at the table and, they're having like lasagna and I'm having a bowl of meat over here. But
it is high quality meat. It is now. It is grass fed, grass finished.
Jim and I took our relationship to a new level. We bought a cow. Yes, we did. The same cow.
Went to the middle of nowhere, Kentucky, to pick it up.
Right. So, a funny thing, too, I haven't told you this, but Jim's also like, hey, man, you need to be taking these vitamins. I'm like, okay, I'll take a vitamin. He's like, no, it's these 13. I'm like, dadgum, man. I'm like, send me a list. He's like, I'll do better than that. I'll put it in your Amazon cart. So he puts it in my Amazon cart. He, creates this page, and he's like, all you got to do is click accept or whatever. So I did, and I take these 13 pills. Meanwhile, I've got a 5-year-old daughter and a 6-month-old son now, and they're in daycare, and with that comes germs and sickness regularly. So Kelly, my wife, is taking this vitamin, it's like it's like 3 pills.
Yeah.
She's like, Quinton, you got to take these pills, right? Because I start getting sick, and it's just like, it's a little bit, and you get full on sick. You need to take these 3 pills. And I'm like, She's like, what is it? Jimmy tells you to take 13 pills, and you take 13 pills. I'm your wife telling you to take 3 and you won't take them. What kind of pull does Jim have over you? So that's the current battle in our house, is why I don't take her 3 pills compared to your 13. And I'm just like, babe, I'm a creature of habit. All right.
I do the same thing to Emily. I'm like, here's your new vitamins. And she's like, oh, okay.
So there I am. I'm just like counting them out in my closet every morning, 13 little pills. And
oh, yeah.
Otherwise, the pill bottles are sitting right there she wants me to take. I don't know.
There you go.
But I'm enjoying it. I feel better.
Yeah.
It's a little bit hard to tell how much better I feel, because at the same time, I came off cholesterol medicine.
Yes.
Which is the devil.
It is the devil.
It is awful. So had a CT calcium scan. Everything's great. Scored 0. Not the only thing I've scored 0 on, but one I'm excited about scoring a 0 on. So, yeah, I feel better. I mean, it's not – I need to get back into the exercise and things like you do. But, just it's a world of difference. And now I've got, before this, I tell my daughter, she's like, get out on the floor and play Elsa with me. Ugh. All right, I'll get down on the floor, but when I get up, I'm not getting back down. That type of thing.
And now you can do both. Now you can get up and get down.
I don't have a choice with a 6-month-old as well. But I feel a lot better than I have in the last decade.
I love it, man. I love it. I'm so proud of you too. I mean, and I know you're not a halfway guy. Like I know you were going to go all in, and I'm just glad that it's helped you. I'm glad that you're feeling better. You look literally like 10 years younger. Because, back up to June, you look sick, man. And I felt bad because I felt bad because I was like, oh my gosh, like, how do I talk him into it? And thank goodness, like you were like, I'm ready. I had been ready. And, hey, life's, like I said, it's not easy. You get busy. Yeah.
All right. I give my day everything I have. I probably peak around 1:30. I get started in the mornings, wake up at 5. The days I don't drop off at daycare, I'm in the office between 6:30. I hit it hard. No fluff. I don't go to lunch because if I go to lunch for an hour, that's an hour more work I got to have. But when I get home, I'm ready to
tap out.
That's it. I've given everything I had to give, and some days it's not fair to my family. But, I was – the last thing I wanted to do was come home or go to a gym or something like that. But I'm learning a new routine, and it's good.
Good, man. How's Miss Bailey and Felix?
They're great.
Yeah,
they're great. They're 2 weeks sickness, and the Santa came by the house, and that was all exciting, and it's great. A 6-month-old at 46 can be. It's interesting.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I won't name names, but we had a friend when we were in high school. It's like, his dad is so old. How do you think his dad is? His dad was 60 when we graduated high school. 60! That's why we don't ever go over to his house and play. His dad was ancient. That's why. And then I'm like, oh, okay. 46 plus 18. Woo!
Yeah,
this will be fun. But
this is going to help you get there in better shape and be able to enjoy it along the way.
Yeah, so. and you pushed me there because I would still be on that miserable path of it's been a marketable change. It's been great.
Yeah. Well, good deal, man. I'm proud of you. One of the things that we did as part of a group years ago. And so big shout out to Larry Roberts at Pinnacle Bank. So Larry puts on a mastermind group every, I guess it's like every 8 to 12 weeks. And we both joined that and went through the E-Myth and that kind of thing. And I know the E-Myth was a big deal for you.
It was. I think that was probably, when somebody at a bank, they're like, hey, you want to join our mastermind class? I'm like, got no idea what it is, but I sure do. So we met and we went through this book, and that's probably the first professional development book that I read. And I think it was great for this reason, because it outlined identifying what type of person you are from a work sense. Okay. Are you a task-oriented person? Are you a managerial-oriented person? Are you an entrepreneur? All right. And I've worked with some entrepreneurial-minded people, and I am not them. I thought they were crazy. But what I was thinking about, they were thinking about years ago and had since moved on, and that's why we didn't have that connect. And managerial, I am not. I'm right. I like to do things. I like to be in control. If it's assigned to me, I don't care if you assign other people to me, I'm still going to do it. So I'm a worker bee. I'm task-oriented, all right? And
which lends itself to being a fixer.
Which is huge for me to first start to identify what I am.
Yeah.
All right? And I'm not going to change to be one of these other people. Like, I'm embracing this. All right? And I feel a lot of people say, well, man, I got management written all over me. Look at me. I went to college, went to law school. Like, People like me? Why can't I be a manager? Well, that's just not your skill set, and that's fine. Don't try to be something you're not. So that was a huge first step for me, is to identify, what am I?
Yeah.
What is my skill set? And my skill set is doing. All right? I have control issues. All right? If I delegate something and somebody makes a mistake, well, it's harder for me to apologize for their mistake than if it is my own.
Right.
It's just the way I am. Not going to change. Nothing wrong with it. So that was a big, big help for me, because I'd never thought about it.
Yeah.
You think, I'm a professional. I need people to manage, and that's how you scale. And I need to start my own business, and that's how you make lots of money, and all these other things. That's great for the people that can do it, but don't try to be something you're not. Celebrate what you are and make the most of that.
I love it. All right, changing gears just a little bit. What would you say is your most fun moment in your life to date? Yeah.
There's people that have kids. It's always, having a kid's kind of like a big deal.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm responsible for other beings now. That's great. I mean, it's the big. Did you say the most fun?
Yeah.
The most fun. Oh man.
And I want to give you an opportunity to be off the hook to some degree on this one, because as somebody that has an 11-year-old, they get much more fun than, like, there's this innocence phase, and there's a moment when that goes away, and the innocence is kind of, you don't really know the day or the minute that it happened, but there's a moment where that innocence that is over your child's face and is just part of their psyche, there's a moment where that's just gone. And I remember the week that happened with Castle, but it's traded for the new version, and they're more fun. And so, as Castle gets older, we get to do more things together. And so I say that to say, it may or may not involve kids, because they're 5 and 6 months old.
Yeah, it's I still have those fun things now. The innocent fun.
Yeah.
I mean, Santa Claus knocked on our door and came in our house last Sunday. That was kind of a big deal.
That's huge.
Like, we know the man. I mean, there's a lot of people in the world. He singled us out, came to our house. So that's a big deal, and the reactions that came with that. So, just it's more experiences, the fun of things. I mean, it's not individual accomplishments or anything. So, and it's a little bit hard to say this, because it's like, I need more experiences in life. That's one of the downsides of having a good work ethic, is you can't shut it off.
Yeah.
You almost need like a handler, all right? And it needs to be your employer.
Yeah.
They need to realize that this is what you are, and the more that they assign to you, you're going to get it done, but it's also going to be taken away from you and your family. And then when you realize that, it creates resentment and everything else. So I need more experiences. I'm going to try to have more experiences this next year. A family trip somewhere, this, that, and other. I'm going with a couple guys over to Scotland to do that. So, there've been, it's all experiences, I think, for anybody that's been fun.
Yeah.
I mean, you go to the University of Alabama for 5 years and 4 summers to get 1 degree. You've had your level of fun.
That's right.
On things, but that's what it's about. It's just, for me, it's going to be the fun of experiences with family and the ones going forward, for sure.
Man, I look forward to it. That's good stuff. All right, so this is a random one, but because I'm a bowler and you've known me throughout this whole situation, I can remember you and your dad and Miss Jenny stopping by my house when I lived in Clarksville, and your dad just being like, "And you bowl backwards, why?" And I mean, obviously I didn't have a good response, but nevertheless, still at it. But if we were going to put on a celebrity or charity event around bowling, and you had to pick a team, and these people could be celebrities, they could be people you've known, they could be living or not living, anybody throughout history, who would you have on your team?
Wow. No clue if they're bowlers.
Doesn't matter.
Tiger Woods. Just an intriguing individual to me.
He was on Virgil's, by the way.
Shocker. Let's do Frank Sinatra, Nate Bargatze. Because I got to have somebody to be like comedically stupid with, and he's got my same sort of personality of dry satire,
but with great timing. Yeah.
All right, and bigger eyes.
And so, all right, so that's who you're going to bowl. That's who you're going to bowl with. You get to pick a commentator.
You know what? I like the guy who was on Holy Moly, who's also the sportscaster guy. I forget his name. He's called a few Titans games. Anyway, he's an NFL sportscaster guy. He's on. He did Holy Moly, and he is
just quick-witted.
Quick-witted, and just the comedic side of things. That's who I'd have it. His voice and the inflections in his voice, they're spot on.
All right. I love it, man. All right, last thing. So if you had one bit of advice out there to give to somebody that's watching this podcast right now, and they're feeling stuck, or they're feeling maybe that they picked the wrong career path, or maybe that they don't have control over how their life is going, or their happiness level, or maybe their health, what's the advice you give to them right now?
First of all, if you're in a job that you're not happy with, like, talk to your employer. I mean, they're people, right? They want what's best for you, because what's best for you is best for them. So it's good to have that open line of communication. Maybe they have an idea of something else you can do. Maybe they, will encourage you to go do something else. If they know you're miserable, they're not going to want you to hang around. Not good for office morale, but there's other reasons. And the other thing is really do some thinking about what it is that is your skill set. I mean, before you asked me 2 months ago if I wanted to be on your podcast, I had kind of thought about it, but just kind of like a business plan or anything else. I hadn't really written it down. I could kind of talk about it, but everybody has a skill set, and it's not knowledge all the time. It's not book smarts. It may be how you go about doing something. It may be the compassion that you have or show something. That's still a skill set. What makes you valuable in what you do? So, I always tell people too that, listen, when I'm disgruntled on things, I mean, I like to verbalize what I don't want to call it. I'm bitching just a bitch, but it's good to hear yourself say it sometimes. But I encourage people that aren't happy, like, before you go into a review and you just complain, how do you solve it? I mean, what's your solution? You should know you better than anybody else. Better than your employer, better than your spouse. You should know you. And if you can't tell somebody how to make better use of you, how are they supposed to do that?
Yeah.
So, and that is not something like flipping a light switch. You're not just going to say, you know what, after dinner tonight, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to think about me. And then tomorrow, I'm going to march right in there and I'm going to make things happen. Doesn't work that way. So spend time on yourself as to what is it that makes you a value add to somebody else. It's not like now, I mean, literally within the last 2 weeks, I'm discovering that mine is not engineering or law or anything else that anybody else can pick up a book and pass a test and read. All right, it's bigger than that. It's people want to work with me because they've had a good experience, because of the way I've treated them, because of the way I've responded to an email, or the way that I have advised them, or because they were used to having the volume-based experience, and then they got a different experience with me.
Yeah.
Somebody that actually took an interest in what they were trying to accomplish. So none of those things are academic. They're all just personality, all right? And you may be a stick in the mud on the personality, but you may be smart as a whip. Focus on that. But do that. If you're stuck in a rut, you haven't always been in that rut, whatever it is. Addiction, job, forward thinking, just put some effort into thinking about what makes me, what makes me valuable, and go from there.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you saw the episode with Giannis Lasmanis, and he's from Latvia, so long way from home here in Nashville these days. And he said, it's all going to be all right in the end. So if it's not all right now, it's not the end. And I was like, wow, that's good. I got to write that down. But we get to tell our own story. And, I think we have to own our mistakes, be accountable to where we're at today. And by being accountable to where we're at today, it gives us the power to change it. And because if you say it's, life happened to me and this happened to me and I didn't have any control over it, well, it also insinuates that you don't have control to change it. But you do. And you have to make up your mind. You have to decide that it's worth changing. And a lot of that is through self-discovery and knowing who you are and what you want in life, at least in some direction.
Yeah, that's a big thing now, too, that you caught on is it's okay to make mistakes. But, if you make a mistake, don't make an excuse.
Yep.
I did it. Why? Well, I don't know why. Sometimes things just happen, but here's what I'm going to do to fix it.
Yeah.
And that makes you a person. That separates you from the herd and the fact that you're approachable. The person that you're working with probably didn't make that same mistake. They might have, but they have made mistakes.
Yeah.
And, no matter how hard I try and precise as I try to be, I make mistakes, but I'm always the first one to say, I'm sorry and apologize for it. It's kind of funny. At my last job, I had to deal with a lot more people in public on some things. And, I wrote, I think it was 5 I'm sorry cards to my boss that they got calls after people had interacted with me. And they're like, we've got your back on all this stuff and we understand, but still you don't people are vulnerable just inherently.
Sure.
There's nothing wrong with showing that side of things. I like to think that I can fix just about any problem.
There you have it.
But I'm going to make some mistakes as I'm doing it.
We're not perfect.
And I'll be apologetic for it. And I'll try not to make it again. But be wary of people that say that they don't make mistakes.
Oh, yeah. No, well, they don't. They're not being truthful in that moment. Plain and simple.
Back to the trust and all the other things we talked about that will follow you.
That's right. And reputation absolutely does. Well, Quinton, I appreciate you coming in. I appreciate you stepping out of maybe the norm a little bit and joining me on the podcast. And, as always, again, best friend for 30, 35 years. I look forward to great things that you're going to do. I look forward to the other great things that we'll experience in life together. And seeing you as a dad, it's hard to tell somebody how awesome it is to be a dad until they are. And I love seeing you in that space, and the fact that we get to raise our kids together and all those things. How does somebody get a hold of you?
Well, I'm with Wagon Wheel Title is where I've been at. I've been there for going on 4 years. We're in East Nashville, Green Hills. My mugshot's up on their website if you want to reach out to me and contact me that way. We do, like I said, we do closings, we do title work, and I think we've got a great product for the size. A lot of title companies may have like an attorney owner, and everybody else that handles things is a processor, and I'm sure proficient at stuff. But we really do kind of fill a niche. We've got 8 or 9 attorneys in house at our firm, so we're big enough that we can do some of the ancillary legal things and keep it all under kind of one roof. So it's good. A good group of owners, a good group of employees, and I'm enjoying it.
That's awesome, man. Well, until next time, everybody, I hope that you enjoyed this time with my good buddy, Quinton Horner, attorney, engineer, proud dad, husband, and just a rock star that I've known for a very long time. Until next time, I hope that you can take some nuggets from this and other episodes and improve your life and be excited about the future. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Hey team, Jim Cripps here with the Charge Forward podcast. I just wanted to tell you thank you. It is the holiday season, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate everyone in my life, even those that I've never met that are out there listening to this podcast. I've been so fortunate to have amazing people come in here in the studio with me and share their life story. And then all the people that are in my life that got me to this point. You know who you are, and I just wanted to tell you thank you. My life has been incredible. It's not that there haven't been lows, and it's not like there haven't been highs, but the reality is my life has been improved and shaped and molded by so many people. That's why I tell people all the time, I do not agree with anybody saying that they are an island or they're self-made, because so many people, both good and bad, help us shape the life that we lead. So please take a few extra moments and just appreciate and be grateful for all the wonderful people that make up your world. And just know that I am thankful for each and every one of you. From everybody here at the Charge Forward podcast and Hit Lab Studios, I just want to say thank you, happy holidays, and enjoy your family. We'll see you later.